Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
Artist Exchange Live.
The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
Starts now.
Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
Artist Exchange Live.
The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
Starts now.
Artist Exchange.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Nate, host of the Artist Exchange, along with Mr. Alan Gray. Let them know who you are, sir.
I'm Alan Gray, host of the Nerd Rap Podcast on Anchor.fm and all streaming platforms where you can find podcasts. Salute for having me, brother, man.
Thank you. So, this is a series of conversations between myself and Alan from our male identified perspective. And we've come up with a number of topics that are traditional or non-traditional for men to talk about, and things that have really, for me, have been pressing issues that I think people misunderstand or misrepresent. And today's topic is who set your sexual value. Typically, like, I'll post something at the beginning of the week leading up to this show or to the shows that I do. And I did not do that this time because I didn't want to come in with commentary in my head.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely going to post it. And I really want to see what your fans as well, Alan, would think of this topic or how they would interpret it. And today I think we may have two different interpretations of what this topic means. And I want to jump right into that. I'm going to let Alan jump off with this one.
As far as who set my sexual value,
right? How do you interpret that? What does that mean, and what's the answer to it, if there's an answer?
Oh, it's crazy. I was talking to my friend about something similar to this. Funny. A lot of the time, how we set our value as young men was usually what we were praised for from doing. We talk about girls, could you fight? Were you, were you one of the cool kids in terms of just, were you tough? Would you not back down? Were you aggressive? Would you, did you know how to game or things? Certain things we compared ourselves to other guards to. So what may have set my value was people knowing I could fight a little bit. I wasn't bad with girls growing up. I wasn't the best, but I wasn't the worst either. So I had to set a certain value for me amongst other young men who may not have had the same social success, even though it don't really mean nothing. But amongst boys, that sets your value to a certain extent of, how you rank yourself amongst other boys with these quantifiers of sexual conquest, of being physically imposing. Did you go to the gym? Were you in shape? Because now the big thing, yeah, you cool and all, nigga, but I'm lean. You feel me? Shorty's like this right here. It was the difference. So now you trying to go to the gym. So all these hegemonic male quantifiers, pretty much any stereotypical, you don't do this enough, you ain't cool. I set my value to that growing up, just like any other dude that was growing up. So society set it, to be honest. Society set my value. I didn't decide that I was, a certain way. Society decided certain thought patterns were prevalent that may have benefited me in some cases and been to my detriment in some cases. But I say society set my value.
And that I hear what you're saying, where there were these different quantifiers. And what is weird, in most cases, those quantifiers were set by people outside of you. And it was this magical them who was never really had a face. It just seemed like everybody else was following along with that. I often talk about, for me, that was set by traumatic experiences, the value of who I am. I was just talking to a friend yesterday, and I was saying to him, I never really, those typical things that we talk about as teens. I've had the conversations, or more so been a part of the conversation. Never really had it with anybody in particular. Where like your stroke game, or how do you come on to people, or how do how do you
The
define
job
that?
talking.
Right, like how do you, like, the locker room talk, of course. And I said to him, and I keep making definitions as to what year this is for me. I'm about to be 40. And even in this conversation, I've never had a healthy conversation about sex with anybody, including having, I think I had health in high school, which was, the teacher was a coach and was very uncomfortable in seeing having the conversation of sexual health. So he went into a more misogynistic, uh, um, toxic masculinity type of lane and teaching us. It was, you could tell he was very uncomfortable with talking about body parts and all that. And outside of that, I had in middle school, they brought in this lady one day in middle school to talk to us about our sexual self. And that's because one of the young men in my class got in trouble at home for buying condoms. He got caught buying condoms in middle school.
Right.
And his grandfather, I guess, who was his guardian, um, brought it to the school's attention as, is this an issue there? If it's him, somebody else may be going through the same thing. And then we've had this lady come in and teach us about sexual health and all those things. And her biggest lesson was bringing this dildo that was attached to this metal base, and she sit it on the table, and she made all of us touch it. And I'm in my mind, even in that moment, this is weird because it's not like ours did not grow yet, or we didn't have one. Like it was about to come to all of us in a package at some point. That's what it felt like.
Yeah, like
Right. She talked about sex as, don't believe what you, she seemed real jaded. She said sex isn't about the feelings, the moon and the stars, all that's crap. It's intercourse. You put your penis in someone. And she was real. And I'm sitting there looking at the teachers, which again, we were all black males, and all the teachers were white males or other. And I'm sitting there trying to understand what they thought we thought. There was no question. There was no question as to what we thought or how we could answer the question. Fast forward into my early teens, and I've talked about this on my station. I was molested in one situation, and then the following year, I was put into a situation at work where my supervisor kind of pressured me, or like almost bullied me into joining him with another young lady that we was with. I think I talked about that on the first episode we did. And so that shaped my sexual value, in my opinion. So all those other situations really confused me, knocked me off my stand. But those traumatic experiences shaped what I saw. And then growing up with all my uncles were the type of guys that always had multiple women, always had, somebody coming in. Many of them lived with us, with my mother and I would see this girl this week, this girl this day, this girl the next. And so I began to shape what I perceived as my value based off of all of these experiences, which even talking about it seems crazy. It seems like, how did you how did you make it out of that situation? But it really, what we see, what we feel, what we experience typically shapes who we are. And that to me um, was a number of very unfortunate scenarios and situations based off of what other people thought I needed shape my value. So my value as an adult for a big majority of my adult life was me not even feeling anything in the process of having sex. It was just something mechanical,
Yeah,
something I thought I had to do in the relationships that I was in. It never felt like something that I chose or something that I wanted.
right.
Until really until my later 30s when I took control of it and I didn't let anybody pressure me or kind of guilt me into doing anything. And you're talking to
Right.
someone who's been married before and have had other serious relationships, and it's always felt that way. Like it was never
Right.
in my control. It was something I was giving over to someone to take control of.
No, I definitely understand that. At the same,
Hmm.
I
Hey,
think that's
Sharon. Sharon says, I would have been damaged for life if someone had put that in my face at such a. I want to say we was even in the sixth or seventh grade. And that's all she did was put it on the table and made us line up and touch it at some
that,
point.
it's like it almost makes the act of sex seem taboo and dehumanizing the way they
Hmm.
describe it to you. Like the moment you do this, you're officially like a dirty person.
Hmm. How does the word display know what you are about to say? AI is amazing. It is. It's scary. It's not amazing. It's scary. But that's what it felt like. And what is interesting, my first attempt to I've been to like grief therapy as a child when certain family members died, but uh um I went to therapy for the first time as an adult on my own at
Right.
30. And I remember the therapist being that off as well. But again, it was a black woman. And I felt like, for some reason, that was more normal to me to go or pick a black woman to be my therapist. But it was the same type of information regurgitated. And I think that's forced me to make decisions for myself and not rely on what I've been taught or what the church said or what I did not get or what I got from my peers. So
Right.
it was very off-putting,
It
to
is.
say the least.
I mean, I've had friends like that too, who like they do really due to how they were raised, really stifled their sexual growth in general, just as men, because
Hmm.
oftentimes, you know, we like to just define it by solely based on the act of sex when it's more than that. It's how you see yourself fully as a man. It's the full
Hmm.
encompassing experience. And then if one part of it is taught to you in a way that's dehumanizing and debases you, like sure,
Hmm.
she should have got charged for that. Like that's almost seems inappropriate how she did that, bro.
It just, I mean, I think we went through a phase. I think in my generation, we went through a phase where tough love was the option or the goal. Like I gotta give you tough love, I gotta give it to you real. And we see that a lot in today when we have these life coaches and we have these friendships. People think they gotta give it to you cold and hard and just abusively
Yeah,
almost. It just feel like that's how we garner information now, and that's how people feel. And you need to toughen up. That's this life. That's just how it is, and you gotta be comfortable with it. You gotta grow into it. And this topic today is really for anybody, but we're just coming from the perspective of being two black males and our representation or interpretation of it. But for for you, well, not for you. I think this topic, this week I broke it down in terms of what I thought about it, and this how young black men define sexual or sexuality, and how does that affect how we um, how we communicate, how we display ours, how we define ours. Because the question is asking who, um, but ultimately somebody, you saw something, whether it be TV or friends or family members or health teachers,
Right.
but the who is kind of the opening door of it, but how you then took that information and you interpret it. So for you, you said you a lot of yours was, from friendships and y'all talking about things. And I remember those talks, but I always felt weird having them. One, because of the things I went through, and ultimately would ultimately go through. But again, I don't know what I thought sex was. I think I was introduced to it in a awkward way, but sexuality, I thought it all was the same. Did you ever learn to separate it? Have you separated it?
Um, I could say as a kid, I didn't even start realizing that sexuality just wasn't like just talking to girls because
Mm-hmm.
I was I was I was I think I jumped off the porch pretty early as a kid, to be honest. And
Mm-hmm.
um I like girls, bro. I don't know what it
Right.
was. I like being around women. I just somehow
But does
like
that have any so your attraction, does that have any connection to your sexuality or how you value yourself sexually?
I mean, it did. I mean, at a
Mm-hmm.
point because I felt confident. It gave me a confidence in myself and like, hey, I can get a little fly today. You know, man, I might be able to pick up something like that. That did instill a sense of self worth and confidence in me because I wasn't really social in time far as hanging out and making friends with people. But I knew,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can go out here and get a little a little twinkle in somebody's eye if I'm putting it on. So that
Not a
boost,
twinkle.
but that gave me confidence. That little
Mm-hmm.
bit of social interaction, and honestly, it was easy for me to talk to women sometimes, just because, most of the time they don't mind just having a conversation.
So it built your confidence.
Yeah, definitely, like 1,000. It built just my
Mm-hmm.
overall self esteem. It
Right.
did help with that. Now, when I got older, I started to define it in terms of how I viewed myself and what I
Mm-hmm.
valued in myself. And that was, when I was 17, when I started really defining my sexual identity on my own quantifiers. But it was still based on the, it, I think when I was 17 is when I questioned it. But my perspective at that point was solely based on my experiences with people. So, I think it was always tied together for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I separated until I got older.
So what at that point, so once you got older, was that because I know some people who it happened to them after they had children. Some still haven't gotten it with or without children. But what was that defining moment for you?
Um, I think I dropped out of school and I wasn't in that social bubble anymore.
Mm,
Being away from it for a second and realizing how much I didn't really agree with it. And I'm like,
mm,
okay, so who am I? How do I define myself? What am I
right.
to? Some girls there's some girls you may have talked to that you wasn't going to talk to because they didn't look a certain way that was considered attractive, but
Mm,
you thought Shorty was cute, but you
right.
just ain't think she dressed a certain way. But why didn't you just talk to her? Like, I'm asking these questions, and what is my attraction to certain types of women based on what I'm actually attracted to, or is it based on what I'm taught to find attractive? Do I think this woman's pretty? Do I think she's ugly? Oh, you don't mess with this certain type of girl. Why not? Why do I not do this? Because y'all told me not to. But yeah, that's how most of our identity was formed, by third hand information from somebody else who probably doesn't live by it either.
Which is weird, but it can often those outside determining factors that we use to define things for ourselves can be off. It can be so off. I remember the first time, I think we was probably like in the fourth or fifth grade, and this young man came. A friend of mine, we was sitting in the lunchroom, and he was talking about what had happened to him the night before, and he was like, and this white stuff came out. Now, it was weird hearing it, but me or my friend didn't believe what he was saying, and we both thought that something else had happened to him. Like, for him to be at that age and already experiencing like ejaculation isn't off-putting, like thinking about it from this perspective, but it just something felt like something else was happening to him, or he was trying to prove himself to us in some type of way, or he saw something and was trying to use it as a space of seeming more popular or something like that. And that's just the type of person he was. But it just was weird how it was another young man sitting there with us, how he took the information versus me and my friend who took in the information. And I think that's because me and my friend were like, we were watching, like I would let him watch my stepfather's porn or something like that. So we had, I think, a unexperienced perspective, of course, but we knew things, and it just didn't happen the way that the young man was saying it was happening. And it was like he was interpreting something and then trying to make it his own. But I remember those conversations, like those locker room type of conversations, and people bragging on it, especially by the time I got to high school, where it was an all boys school. So it was definitely a pissing contest every day.
Yeah.
And it was this, how people gave out the information or how they um, bragged on it. And you could tell the ones who had started doing it because they had a different type of conversation. And it was this race to who wanted to do it, or who was gonna do it first, or who turn is it now, and it's a weird thing how those things just naturally happen with every generation. And in terms of like this, the question itself, who set your sexual value? Um, you made that moment when you began to question how you did things leading up to that, but now being on this side of it years later, does any of it make sense to you? Like, does it look differently to you now?
Um, um, I'm appreciative of the Wild Wild West days. I'm like, because I learned lessons. I can look back and say I never disrespected nobody. I never
Mhm.
made nobody feel lesser than. Like, it was
Right.
always, just fun. Just respectful. Just enjoying myself for real. But
Mhm.
I can say, not defining myself by that was definitely a breath of fresh air as far as being a man's concerned, because I always define myself by what I like to do. I like to draw. I like to do music. I like to work. I didn't want to be defined by my conquest. I didn't want to be defined by
Mm.
women find me attractive. Like, that's baseless. I think a lot of guys don't mind just being somebody's object, but the irony of, we accuse the other side of, saying
Mm.
all them objects, but a lot of men actually are taught inherently that we don't have the self-worth to say I'm worth more than just knocking around with them. Like, when I was younger, like, black men used to get flirted with by older aunties and family members and say all type of shit to you that's wild and inappropriate, but it's, from our perspective, it's supposed to be acceptable because, we're taught that black men are hella more sexual than
Hmm.
the average person, which is not true.
How
You
often
very
did that happen to you? Like a family friend or somebody like older? How often did that happen to you?
a lot. Uh,
Mm,
like nothing went further from that, but like it
right.
always felt weird to me. Like even the first girl I lost it to was older than me.
Hmm.
I mean, it felt it was always like this. I think I had to take control of it back. That's the best way I can say about it. Like I needed to. I didn't feel in control my first time. Like not in a bad way. Like I was chained up or anything, but I felt kind of like I was. You know what I mean? I was objectified, which
Hmm.
I've done it to others in my time so I can't be mad either. But
But where did you learn that from? Now that's the source of where you learned it from. That is an awkward feeling,
yeah,
even as a child who doesn't know better. And when I say better, they don't know that they have a voice. They can say no, in a lot of our black families, we don't teach our children no, what's inappropriate, good touch, bad touch. Those types of things I feel like are just starting to be a thing,
yeah,
and I feel like parents really have to get over the uncomfortable feeling because you are yet sending another generation out into the world with half information where a lot of my sexual uh, thoughts or ideas came from the Playboy channel, which is totally off center because it wasn't even real. It was
right,
simulated. So to then go to that, and I had cable in my room, so I was watching Real Sex and on HBO and all
yeah,
of those what they used to call Skinamax shows.
yeah,
But that's a false reality
right,
of what sex is. Similar to when I spoke about the lady who came into my middle school and gave us it was like 45 minutes of unconscionable sexual health lessons. Like me touching a penis, what does that do? It's weird. It was weird to me. And I remember me and a couple other boys got into a little trouble because we asked the teacher who we had next period, like, so does that mean we're gay because we touched another penis?
I have questions.
And because that's the only way that I could think of. Like all of us use the bathroom, so at some point we've touched the penis of our own. Hopefully, just at that age of our own. But I I'm weirded out by the fact that this is a lesson. Like, what was I supposed to get from this? That one particular thing. What was I? So, and all of us uncomfortably walked around it and like tapped it because nobody wanted. And she was like, hold it, like being real aggressive. And it just felt for the rest of that week, I just felt weird
Yeah,
going to the bathroom.
yeah, she had to. Yeah, she had. You had to call the people on her, man. That's
I don't ever I like it is weird because people say stuff like that, but you don't as a child. That's the difference between an adult and a child. You don't have the experience
you
or
don't even
wisdom
know
to
out
know
here.
what to do in those situations.
Yeah, you don't even know what's
And
going on here. You're just
right, and it really has governed how I am as an adult. When I feel something's wrong, I say it in that moment. I try not to hold it back
yeah,
because then you walk away as confused as the situation was.
right.
But and feel free to ask me questions as well. I don't want this to feel like this is your, you know, I'm
No,
questioning you in this moment.
no, you good, man. I was going to ask you to pose another question.
Hmm.
Because like I raised the point of outside media, so I feel.
Hmm.
Do you feel that outside media has positively or negatively define how black men sexually portray themselves.
Oh, I'm an actor, so that's being a part of the entertainment world, and you are picked, you are chosen, you are paid to be a sex symbol. Whenever there's a leading man in something, I'm not saying it doesn't happen to women, but specifically for black men, when we're in something, the greatness of it is determined by how many people wanted to sleep with you and who wanted to sleep with you. I think media does a disjustice when like something tragic happens to a young man and they automatically profile him by the way he looks and puts that out there, and giving him real manly descriptions when he's just maybe a teenager or younger. So I
Right.
think media, TV, all forms of imagery on TV or whatever, internet now, grossly um, makes it about a man's sexual appeal
Right.
and determining his manhood. So if it's not somebody I'm attracted to, oh, this is creepy.
Right.
And if it's somebody you're attracted to or you want to sleep with, it determines how you talk to them, how you speak about them, how you carry yourself around them, versus that's just a man. And I understand what you like is what you like. And eye candy is eye candy. But I don't want to ever feel like that is the determining factor over my skills, my intelligence, my hard work.
Right.
And we know a lot of movies where we've seen where someone was simply a pretty face and there was no depth there. There was no,
Right.
there was nothing else there. And because the media hyped him up or hyped that individual up, the movie became more popular than what it should have been.
So another point. So do you feel that our culture is slick over sexualized? And I mean just pop culture in general, not just specifically black culture, but because black people, we lay so much of a stamp in pop culture, we're also a victim to it if it's a sex obsessed culture.
Um, say that again for me.
All right. Do you feel the reason why they just
I think his camera
the
got
reason
off
why they
camera.
sell it in a certain regard is because they because our culture inherently is sexual. Our culture is inherently sex obsessed in terms of the attractiveness of women, of men, of plots and movies, or of the appeals. Like they sell sex. Sex is commodified. So do you feel that in them commodifying sex and making it like a product?
I'll answer what you said so far. Part of what I feel is, and this is me going on auditions, being told, "Oh, you're so talented," but if you were just, I'm 5'8". If you were just 6 feet, or if you were a little bit lighter, or if your voice was a little bit deeper, can you try to maneuver a deeper tone to your voice? Hearing this over and over again, I should be somewhere crawled up in a ball and just feeling bad about myself. What I think is happening is, again, those people who are always nameless and faceless have told us that the only way to sell something is to add a little sex to it. And
Yeah.
if you add a little sex to it, then you will get this target demographic. Or and then when the thing with us, black men and black women, when we exude that, then we're animalistic. Then we're inappropriate. Look at what's happening to Sierra. There were tons of other women there that night, but because somebody just felt something about the way she looked, she got the backlash. The theme of the event was barely there. So all of these women who you've never seen dressed like this before came dressed like that. And it was, for me, it wasn't a problem, but I think when we exude sexuality, out exuding sexuality is offensive to people. But yet they still try to pull it out of us for likes and shares and box office sales. I think it's an ugly way, and I'm now, me being in a teacher platform or on radio or doing these things where I'm seeing how younger people are being used in that way, it sickens me. It
Yeah,
really, it just sickens me.
I I think I asked that question because we see the effects of it on kids. We
Mm,
see the effect of it on youngins because kids, like when I pointed to my generation specifically, because at 13 and 14-year-old, when we seeing the hip hop videos and the dudes is grinding on these girls who at the time we don't realize these girls in these videos ain't nothing but 16, 17 years old. So these are girls we're seeing in high school hypersexualizing these girls. So we're seeing these girls like the girls being shown to us in the media we're consuming. And we're trying to be like that, but we're just 14, 15 years old.
hmm and what is weird, so what people don't realize, especially then and a little bit now, a lot of those women were grown women.
Mm.
So they were trying to force them to stay little girls as 20, all some of them 30 some years old.
Mm.
I can't remember the one young lady. She played in a show. I cannot remember the name. But she said she was about 25, 26, playing a 14, 15-year-old. So I
Yeah.
think we do those things, and that typically happens because people don't want to work with children because it's too costly because you can't shoot for certain periods. So that's the excuse. But I think we have always over sexualized, and let's just stick with men. Like it's always happened. Like the men has to be look a certain way, appear a certain way to be even brought onto the platform. And it's a weird space to find yourself in when you know you've only been chosen based off of what you look like.
Yeah.
So it just, finding your value is hard in that because your value is then set by how much somebody else likes you or wants to sleep with you or wants to be in a space with you. Sharon says, I know why it is doing that because it's a slight delay. Oh, okay, okay. But yeah, so it really it it's just weird. It's I don't understand why this is not weird to other people. Or do you feel that way? Does it feel weird that your talent is based off of what you look like and not what you can deliver?
Yeah, I'll never forget. I was watching um n- unrelated to black men in particular, but about just something about black people. Rick Ross doing a show. We having these girls sing, and I remember all these girls went and sung. There was one girl, she's kind of petite, small girl for the most part, but talented. Which was the
Mm-hmm.
point of the singing competition, not the model
Right.
one. So she got the singing, and Shorty had a she had the loudest voice in the room. She was the smallest girl in there, and she let off. Now the next girl goes up. She can't really sing that well, but she really pretty. Rick Ross immediately said, "Yo, it's just something about her, man. Something amazing." And it's like, bro, it's not the song she's singing, bro. She's not doing that well.
Mm-hmm.
But because she looked a certain way, that's who y'all gonna run behind. And I'm not mad at somebody's beauty being a thing that gets them some type of attention and monetary gain. I'm only mad at when it trumps talent in a field where that talent should supersede someone's physical appearance. Like acting to me is like is thespians are craftsmen of performance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like when you're acting, I don't really care for someone looking the part if they can't play the part. But it's always been weird to me. I mean, I always seen rappers
Is
who
it a Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Is it so? What then? So we've been doing this forever. Before me and you were born, before our parents were born, so on and so forth. So what is the solution then? So how do we get back to a different space or a better space with this? Because I think it really is ruining how we communicate. Because now I'm not seen as, I know in certain situations right now, if you don't look a certain way, you're not even listened to. Or if you don't come across as the sex symbol, you're not even believable.
Yeah. Like, if you want to be a popular rapper, you have to consider your physical appearance. You got to turn into damn Captain America just so you can try to be appealing, so the audience can still give you a pass and say, okay, well, he's this, but he's this. And you meet these criteria, this checklist, as if you're a piece of meat.
Right.
And the thing that would always help is when we stop defining ourselves about things that are outside of our character. Like, I think somebody's character should be where we are placing value in people. Do you respect those around you? Are you right?
Hmm.
Are you honorable? These things amongst men are things that matter. Like us respecting those that show respect, us holding ourselves to better standards, us, just having better habits, period, in terms of how we take care of ourselves, not feeling like we're only worth our bodies so a woman is pleased versus our mind
Right.
or our emotions. Like, there are more
But
things.
I think you said it earlier. You define how you begin to build your confidence,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's where the trip happens. And what I'm seeing from many people, not even just from you, but this in many
A lot
people,
of guys,
because
yeah.
that's still right. That becomes how we define who we are, and then that becomes how we, you know, uh, believe we are, and then that creates the behavior.
Yeah.
And so it's nothing wrong with, because our first episode was on representation, and I think often that really defines something. But if there isn't already a building or a strengthening of a foundation from home, you then begin to look at those things as your value, as you build your value.
Yeah.
And I said it right the first time, as your value.
Yeah.
And then you begin to build your value on other people's measuring sticks.
Yeah.
And it's a weird feeling to be in. And I remember, because I went to all boys schools, it was very apparent, because it was always about how to be better than. So when you go to private schools, you have a uniform. So the only thing that you can really set yourself apart from other people is either what the label you're wearing is, or the type of shoe you're wearing, or the haircut you have, or the accessories that you choose. And I remember from middle school on up, and it was crazy because elementary school it was mixed, and then middle school and high school was all boys. And I saw myself trying to define myself by different things. So I would take two ties and tie them together, and I would do this like perpetual blowing thing. This things that would set me apart from everybody else.
Right.
But when I caught myself doing it, I was like, this is dumb. But I was already like in the 10th grade by that time. So it was already like a part of my behavior to
Right.
just try to do stuff to set myself aside, whether I would, you know, paint something on my pants leg and get in trouble because I'm not supposed to wear that like that, or you know, um, try to come in with that Fresh Prince mentality. I'm gonna flip this inside out and do something different. And I think we naturally try to go against the grain, but we're really following everyone else and doing that. So, I know in this topic today it was about sexuality or sexual value, but I think all that goes together,
Yeah.
especially for young boys. That's how we determine things.
I mean, that's how we define ourselves, is like, when we're younger, is we define our sexual value as solely our prowess or ability to get sex. But
Hmm.
when you get
Yeah.
older, you realize that sexuality is not just defined by who you have sex with, it's defined by how your sexual identity. You as
Right.
a being, a multifaceted being, outside of you just talking to women or whoever somebody talk to. Everybody talk to everybody these days. But
Yeah.
the point is too is doing it healthily, doing it from a place of you knowing yourself, of knowing who you are. Like a lot of
Mm.
men aren't told just go somewhere and be by yourself for a second, figure out who you are. Because that's what happened to me. I was by myself for a long while going to get my GED because there was no teachers in the GED class. You just went there,
Right.
they gave you work, and you had to pass those 4 tests. And the
Yeah.
test is in 4 months. So if you don't know how to do it, you're just gonna fail. There's no teacher there. So I'm studying every day. I'm by myself, and number one, you're figuring out a lot of things. It was cool to be a slacker in school. Now I figured out that I'm not bad at studying. I'm not bad at doing my work. I
Mm.
actually work pretty hard.
Right.
But why didn't I do this in school?
It was the peer pressure. And I haven't heard that term. And I just said it because that's what it was, but I haven't even heard that term in forever because peer pressure has turned into a norm.
Yeah,
It's the group think, the sheep mentality. And it's just, it can be hard because I've seen many people, and I think we've all in some capacity have had this happen to us, where, you know, what we thought was a normal thing as we became adults and culturally things have changed. Now, what used to be cool is now considered fuckboy shit.
yeah,
But we just was glorifying it and we confuse people. I think people get caught up in trying to be these things. Then we say to you, well, you should have your own mind. Well, that wasn't to it. That wasn't,
yeah.
the toxic things were the things that were freely given. The
Having your
stuff
own
that was
mind is a
healthy was
new
hidden from
concept.
us.
That's like you said, that's a new concept. Because
Yeah,
just think for yourself and just exist off the status quo. This wasn't just part of the zeitgeist back in the day. It was
right.
this is how black males move and how we act. It's literally been within the past 15 years really where it's been a real hard conversation about the identity of men outside of us playing these typical patriarchal roles of being the breadwinner and being the
Provider, the
oppressor.
protector.
Yeah, what
Hmm.
what actually defines a lot of us, and a lot of us don't know. That's
We
the
don't
sad
know.
part. Like I could tell you all day what my sexual value would be, but it's going to be based on quantifiers outside of myself. It's not going to be
Hmm.
based on my own personal preference. I think I'm awesome, but that's that has nothing to do with anything outside of my interests of what I do, of
Right.
who I am, and you coming to terms with that. But we don't know how to
Mhm.
do that. We have to go through these weird journeys ourselves and ask hard questions and deal with
Yeah.
like it's a painful journey to do it yourself. And I'd rather teach kids to do it young so they can learn at a young age is what they like to do. So I tell my son, real hard body, if you like something and it makes you feel happy, go for it. I'm not here to
Yeah.
tell you what's right or what makes you a man and what defines you because I don't know you don't know you yet.
And it's not one single, as you said, quantify. It's not one single thing that makes you a man because it could be something totally different from me. We walk two different walks. We may do
Exactly.
similar things, but we're two different people. And I feel like a lot of people are just making up rules right now. Like as we go along, we just gonna keep making up these rules as to what a real man is or what it's supposed to be and the things he's supposed to like. What if I don't have children? That means those things don't that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. That's not my level of manhood. Oh no, but you're supposed to give that to the other children that you come in contact with. Oh, okay, so we just making up shit at this point. We're not even
Well,
clearly defining things, so there's no misunderstanding.
you had because you had like these gurus who came to try to define masculinity for dudes, whether it was the Kevin Samuels or the Derek Jacksons or all these guys were coming and trying to give this rigid construct of what a guy should be. Either you're all the way hardcore, I'm the stepping stool for every woman I see, or you're a diehard misogynist and women are under my heel. It's like you don't know the middle ground of just
But see, even with those two examples you just gave, like Kevin Samuels was an image consultant, and it just wasn't working for him. So he began to talk to these people who was asking him relationship questions.
I mean,
and that began. He was like, "Oh well, this works. Let me just walk down this lane."
because
And it's almost like then we villainize people for trying to use the algorithm that they are bringing to them. Like you are creating this obstacle.
I can't. My only real concern with any person like that is because you're giving people a rubric of set answers based on a standard that's already failing a lot of men. Because like all the quantifiers he gives are just patriarchal ideas. A man should make a certain income, be a provider. A woman don't want you unless that. These are views of the atomic family from the 50s. However, most men, unconsciously or otherwise, we live to reach that patriarchal idea of what a man is in society, the breadwinner. And we realize that as time goes on, as the economy gets to crap, as these jobs are no longer keeping people tenured for long times, that may not be possible for a lot of us. We may be able to get bread, we may be able to not be bums, but that idea of manhood that a lot of us defined ourselves by really didn't exist since the 70s. It's been on a slow die.
Right.
So now, when you're teaching the modern man an archaic view of what a man is, I feel that inherently is a problem because now you're going to be mad at these women who can't look at you like that, not because they don't want you. It's just they changed. The society where a woman had to go to a man for a job because she couldn't get one is gone.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a pressing need to survive anymore. You're a legit option. And a lot of us don't know how to deal with that. It's a pendulum shift for a lot of men. If you were so dependent on that as a value setter, and it makes a lot of men cling to the Kevin Samuels because it's giving those type of men power, but it's also toxic because you're just reinforcing the ideas that made them feel isolated in the first place.
Yeah. I'll say what is heartbreaking to me is that we push young men into this adult life with those unrealistic expectations, with unsecure foundations, and false perceptions of what reality is, and we push them into adulthood, and then we call them fuckboys when they can't live up to my expectations.
Right.
That I have not communicated, that I haven't been able to realize in my own life for my own self. And it's not a war, because I think parents push their children into adulthood. And then those very people then complain about all the fuckboys that are around, but you haven't given this young man anything solid to go by. And I said before in our past shows, children listen to what they see. You can say a bunch of stuff. Don't have sex without condoms. Don't have sex before you marry. Don't have sex before. You can say those things, but when they see somebody coming, creeping in and out of your bedroom that you're not connected with, what then is the example? Or, if they see how you treat other people, not just black men, but just other people. They see how rude you are to people. That then shows them how to be adults. And then that's not a class for adulthood. It just happened to you one day.
You're just grown and now you got to figure that shit out.
Right. And it becomes a cycle that we live in. So with children, I think we can fix this problem much faster.
Yeah.
If we change how we talk to them, what we show them. my fear is all the adults out there who don't have it, who was never given any of this value speak.
Yeah.
What then we do? We just are we just waiting for them to die off?
I mean, if you're a righteous heart, regardless of your faith, if you're a righteous person, you're never going to give up on anybody. But
Mm-hmm.
realistically, they're not a priority either. It's just, to be honest, if you want to hear a different perspective,
Right.
no, I always do. I'm not going to argue with anybody. I always feel information should be given as a gift, not as a blunt object. It's information is a gift. When you're giving somebody info, you're not showing your superiority of you being smarter. It's like, yo, I know this. I want you to know this. Now we both know it. There's no such thing as smarter. You just didn't know it.
So then it's a tool versus you beating them over the head as if it's a weapon.
It's a building block.
Mm-hmm.
Information builds relationships. I mean, if you give transparent information, you trust talking to this person a lot easier because this person is giving you information and not just their bias wrapped up in a pretty bow. And I mean, we have our biases, but that shouldn't dictate how I convey a message to somebody. The issue is most people are just conveying their bias to people, but since our biases are taught, how much of it is legitimate advice that we actually, what I mean? Like how much of it is actually male advice versus what a male should be? Because those are two radically different things right now.
But when you use the word should, that's your expectation that you're putting on them. And that expectation is built off of what you had and in most cases what you didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're putting that person in place of something you were lacking or in a place of something you may not have anymore.
Or a place that I expect people, like, yeah, it's an expectation that's taught, like I say even now, like my pops say this all the time, like we drive past, it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon in a weekday. What the hell are you grown ass man doing sitting around here chilling, ain't nobody at work? That was a big thing in my family. Like at 12 o'clock noon, you're a grown ass man, you better work at night. Like you need to be doing something. That was always what are you doing here at 12 o'clock in the afternoon?
And that's even if you're working at night.
Like,
why didn't you find
working
another job for the daytime?
Something. I mean, if you got a night job, we're cool with that because you're going to work. But if you're just out here chilling on a weekday,
and understand at the core of that type of I don't even know can we call it a lesson? Can we call it information? At the core of that, there's a value and there's substance. But what has happened now is we were raised and we are now raising new generations to have it easier. So when you do that, and I've been hearing a lot of memes say, if you fail to raise your child, you'll be raising your grandchildren. Or if you spoil it's something about if you spoil your child, you'll be raising your grandchildren. But if you raise your child, you won't have to worry about raising your grandchildren. And I think the core of some of those values that we got, like get up and do something with your life. But what am I watching you doing? Because you're watching the stories while you're telling me this. You're not showing me anything differently. You just want more and better from me. But your way of doing it, your pedagogy, how you teach, is not reflective on how you live your life.
Right.
And that's why a lot of young people are not listening to us now. They're choosing to do things off the beaten path because your actions did not line up with your wisdom.
Because they asking, no, you talking about me saving money? Where your money at? You talking about me working? Where your job at? Or do this, do that. And
that's often given without you teaching that child how to save or how to find a job.
And
or career.
A lot of us, let's be 1,000. A lot of us still don't know. We just make it look good. Like we don't
Right.
know. Like I'm just doing the best I can. I don't know.
Or what happens on the flip side of that? You become like addictive to saving money. So that means you're not living your life.
You addicted to hustling versus actually living. Like you
Or
can
you
make
addicted to a hustle and you don't understand how to that's supposed to be temporary. And you now living your life always fighting, always scratching, always and it's just it's misinformation given from, in my case, a loving nucleus. But as like the telephone game goes, as it begins to be spread, the message gets distorted. And my own personal expectations get mixed in there, and now I'm giving it to the next person, and now it's abusive, and it's not reflective of what you actually taught me.
I think that's the thing too that a lot of people don't understand is that a lot of the things that define and set the value for men previously, we're gonna get hit with every last aspect of society that
Mm-hmm.
affected it. So classism, sexism,
Mm-hmm.
racism, all of those isms dictate how black men sees their identity and set their value as well. Because society gave black folks certain value as is. So when you're raising kids, that fear, that anxiety, that xenophobia that you deal with, we're bred in that. We're raised in, and that kind of sometimes that pollutes an image that they're trying to teach because all those lessons now are coming with a tint of there's an expectation for where you should be and there's an expectation for where I want you to be.
Right.
So it's almost like we're raised out of fear in our community sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not raised in understanding, and that's to our detriment because I know, like when I was in Charlotte, I lived in the burbs. There was a lot of dudes who ran out trying to be in the streets even harder when we got older because their parents were trying to, be so spoiling them and whatnot versus dealing with them emotionally, and they still end up running to the streets.
Well, that's because I think when you're spoiled, you have a certain amount of freedom and luxury. So
Yeah,
in the totality of what the image of a black man is supposed to be doesn't fit being spoiled. Because I
right.
gotta be tough. I know I have plenty of friends. One of my closest friends never had to be a drug dealer. But because he wanted that mantra on him, he wanted to be seen as a certain thing, he went out there and sold drugs and was killed. Because they robbed him, knowing that he came out there every day fresh and clean, with nice clothes on that his parents were still buying him. He didn't have to be out there. So they set him up. And it's just we don't realize that we are setting miscommunications with youth who then grow up to be adults and believe. Because
Yeah,
once you have begin to do something for a certain amount of time, that's now your behavior, your belief system, and you're not able to see the difference between, oh, you know what, I don't need to be out here, and a part of you thinks that, but the other part that's stronger is like, well, these people will look at me like I'm weak, like I'm
yeah,
not strong enough, and it's miscommunications because what are we doing? We're glorifying this on movies and TV shows. So what do you think? And I gotta watch BMF I gotta watch the episode, and your child is watching that,
watching is
or a
violent.
young person is watching that be glorified in rap songs, and it's the same way that we've talked about before. Jay-Z and Snoop Dogg now portraying these grown and mature men, but your catalog of music that we're still listening to does not reflect that. So,
In the slightest.
and you can't just get rid of that, but your messaging can't be a weapon towards people now. Like, you need to get yourself up, go buy the block up. Well, okay, I'm gonna do that, but I'm gonna go use this drug money, like you did, to get to that place.
Well, like you
But
say
now
you
it's just
did.
not the same system. Go ahead.
No, no, no. Like I was agreeing, like they say they did, because some of them were just lying. And then the generation after them figured they really have to do it, not realize that y'all were lying, found out y'all were lying. So now it's two generations that just found out that none of this was that serious. And we could have just been being regular people and did this. But we're too late now. The image is what the culture wants now.
Or even the
The image.
reality that some of them, that's how they did make it.
Yeah,
But
some of them
let's
did make it like
let's
that, yeah.
find a different way.
But a different way is not a different way comes off when you're trying to set your value to certain patriarchal things. We especially in our community, we salute the men who suffered for some reason. Like we salute suffering, we salute hardship and agony and trauma. Like, oh man, he really went through it. Oh man, he really been. That's how we value somebody. So we'll yell at somebody, say, you ain't been through nothing. Like that's a bad thing. Like that's a bad thing that they were raised with a mostly peaceful existence. You know, I mean, we all have our traumas, emotional things could have happened, but for the most part, you were raised in a good home.
Yeah.
We clown people for that when there are people who struggle but live in a good home, good parents. Like that doesn't knock their money problems or their other things. Like, and that's why
It
I
could
say
be
with value.
emotional or support.
Yeah, like that, and that's the thing with values. Like because we'll teach dudes like the same thing I said earlier. Like, oh, look at all these men 12 o'clock not getting no job. They may be poor, but what if those men take care of their children? What if that's the only hour they got while they put the baby to sleep and they all chilling and relaxing?
Mm.
What if
Perception can be dangerous when
what
you
if
don't
they're
have all
poor?
the information.
What if you walk up to these guys, they just got off work? What if they make their own hours? You don't know them. You don't know what they're doing, but the instant perception is, what are these niggas doing out here?
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. It's a tough thing to understand when you don't have all of the information. But as you're saying, like perspective and point of view is always skewed because it's still coming through my experienced eyes, like what I've
Yeah,
gone through. So that looks like somebody not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
right.
Because the question is, well, what are you doing? You watching me right now. So what are you doing? And I think that a lot of this is being fueled by people just wanting, or us being in a different space now and us expecting for everybody to get that and to move along. When you were okay with the school system or the schools in your neighborhood not teaching the children well, those are the same children. They didn't belong to you when we took our hands off of children. People don't want to be role models anymore. So you took your hands off of people. And now the result of you taking your hands off of generations of people is now squeegee boys or now, vagrancy. Remember we had vagrancy laws at one time. We had truancy police. Those things don't exist anymore because we took our hand. This let the schools. Everything was blamed on the school. Let the schools and the teachers handle that.
Not realizing that some of those laws legitimately was the village trying to be a village.
And there was a lot of discourse in that because people like the isms played
Mm-hmm.
a big part of those things then being used against us. But you don't just scrap stuff with no other strategy for how to keep things moving. I don't ever remember. I remember maybe every now and again you'll see a grown man outside selling waters or something, but I don't ever remember this being a squeegee boy being an option when I
But,
was that young.
but
And some of them not even teenagers. Some of them are grown men who thought they were doing something. But getting back to the sexual value aspect, has there been anything that you've taken away from the mistakes you've made in that space and how to set your value, and now how you're giving your children that value?
oh, definitely, man. I always told my son more than anything, just define yourself by what you feel is right in your heart. And it sounds stereotypical, but that's just honestly what I started doing. I started going off what I felt in my gut first. When I realized and found value in myself, I realized how little I like to be around people. Like I'm not social. I'm not social of a person. Like if I was talking to a girl, I'd probably be talking to her one at a time just because I generally don't care to talk to that many people.
Is that a reaction from your experience, or do you feel like that's who you've always been?
So that's really how I always was. Like I always was generally I wasn't a people person. Like I'll talk to somebody, I kind of stay to myself. I'll talk to somebody, I stay to myself. But I enjoyed being by myself.
Mm-hmm.
I like being social every now and then, but I enjoyed being to myself, and I didn't realize how much I enjoyed that until I kind of had to do the GED thing, where I'm like, yo, I'm able to gather my thoughts, and I realize I have a short social battery. Like I'm not, I can't be around people. I don't know if it's anxiety or things like that, but it
It
started
sounds like you
questioning.
found. It sounds like you found a rhythm of success in your solitude,
Yeah,
and that's hard to break. That's really hard to break once you move in it.
yeah, it gave me a lot of clarity. So like now I'll be talking to people and like they'll still be thinking from a mindset that I thought at before I found solitude. And
Mm,
so you can hear sometimes when I bring up things about how they view women and it's like, oh man, I'm F that, F them B's. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I feel you, bro. You still in that mode where that still matter. When it don't matter, you don't got no resentment toward that woman making a decision, bro.
do you feel hurt by those experiences? And this is now because I and you finding success in it. That's great. But in you healing, is it because I know for me, it has become a means of survival, my solitude.
Yeah,
Because often people have grown to a space where they can't be trusted,
yeah,
where people choose profit over passion. Um, Spaces where everybody trying to get the bag by all means necessary. So it has grown into a space right now where I'm better off doing it by myself. And ultimately, that's really not truthful because I don't care what you're doing, somebody's going to have to be a part of that in some way.
yeah,
Whether it be somebody watching us or buying something or supporting us, but it can become a habit that's hard to break when you get into that. And now we're coming out of a pandemic where we were forced to be separated and be in
right,
solitude, which gave a lot of us that find comfort in that. I think we became superheroes throughout the pandemic because I think we got more done than we've ever gotten done before
yeah,
because we did not have the boundary of having to be in a space with someone. Even when you worked, everybody was working from home majority. But yeah, I get that. I just want to break myself of that for me personally because
um,
I want to find people that are like minded, and it's hard to do that when you in your box.
I, I I think that's the big thing with me because a lot of my real close friends don't live in the same state as me, so I talk to them all the time. So I'm like, bro, we
Hmm.
always like I still save my money sometimes, at least one time a year, to still see my close homies, just
Mm,
because like I don't mind being social. Like I make a lot of friends in general, just because when you're out rapping and stuff, you meet a lot of people,
hmm.
but like legitimate, like my dogs. I don't have that many that I like legitimately like to be around and just talk shit about all day. Like we just kicking shit and politicking, and
Yeah.
it's not that many people. So you know, uh, solitude more than anything was just for me to find peace from the nonsense. Because once I got away from that mentality, being around it is draining. Like
Mm,
it's really draining to be around, especially when brothers are so obsessed about who they doing and yo shorty, what shorty look like. Oh man, I got this little John here. Like, bro, relax, bro. Like,
mm, mm.
chill, bro. Like that's how this is coming. Like, bro, chill out, bro. Like, or when a girl come around, they start acting extra different, and the conversation switch topics. You know what I'm talking about? Like, we
Yeah.
all we all cool and
Hmm.
having a convo. Then out the blue, yo, man, I just got my strap out the car. And it's like, bro, you. Bro, we was talking about video games for you. She came in here, big dog. Like, you ain't had to do all that, bro. But I understand it. So like, you can't even laugh at him. It's kind of like, damn, bro. Like this.
He gets serious all of a sudden, and
He
it
gets,
is and that has been a recurring issue generationally, and it still amazes me that it still happens that way. Um, and it's taken a lot out of me when I see young people in those spaces not to lend my advice, and I feel bad not to be able to do that. Like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to change who you are to be seen by somebody else. And it's that same pattern. Like, they saw you. If you either gonna be a geek or not. Like, either they gonna like you or not. Like, so why why do this big reveal after you get them years down the line when you're like, oops, this is really who I am, and they don't like that person.
that never got me. And number one, I think the biggest thing that helped me change everything was I'm not somebody that really cares to hide what I like to do. I don't like sneaking. I'm a proud person. So if I decide to do something, I don't care if the world sees me doing it because I like doing it. Like, I was in the comic books. I was about to not read my Batmans in class just because it wasn't cool. I was just that one dude who used to read Batmans in class. And the crazy thing was this other dude, he used to mac on girls all the time too. We just used to trade comic books with each other. We were both nerds. They ain't had
Right.
nothing to do with people. They had nothing to do with nothing as far as that aspect of talking to girls and stuff. But it was still dope that like we still generally did what we wanted. I trading games with the nerds in school because I was pretty much a nerd. Like that's what I was into. Like, I drew comic books in class and shit. Like, I was, whatever. I got in trouble and stuff, but that not who I was. That was more of my temperament. But who I was, well, I was always a nerd. It's just once I dropped out of school, the social pressure of having this, all right, man, I'm a nerd, but if a dude try me, I'm gonna swing on him and this and all the other extra shit. Once that was gone, it's just I could be a nerd. It could be who I am. Like, I just like to read, and I like fiction, like fictional world and shit. I like talking to other people into it. So when I meet like a black nerd and we all go to that same plight of when you're into certain things, you immediately ostracize from most black circles now that you gotta go in like a corner.
Yeah.
When some of us used to like to get fly and like you know what I mean, look sharp and go out there talk to ladies. It's just we was nerds. Like, you know what I mean? You watch Madden, we watch Dragon Ball Z and stuff. Like, nothing changed. But
But that's now become a popular thing, or not really popular. People are now talking about that they love it. I don't know what can be done other than having more of these types of conversations to let people have that safe space. And that's actually our topic for next week: giving men a safe space to heal and grow. So I think that's where some of the solutions will come from. But definitely being in a space where, and I think because I'm in front of students and I'm seeing behavior that I used to typically see in like 11th, 12th graders and second and third graders now. Like that feeling like you got to be a certain way or you got to portray yourself a certain way. And that was there before, but it was like maybe one or two people. But now it's the entire class. We're doing things and saying things that are not safe.
social media done pushed it to a new level though. Like, now these
Mm-hmm.
kids are watching how life should be for other kids, and that's really what makes a lot of this harmful when they sell this certain image of what makes you a successful man. Because it's an 8-year-old ingesting all this. Like, this is facts. He's not our age to realize, like, bro,
Mm-hmm.
son's selling you wolf tickets. He lying. Like, that's a scam. Right? He's not old enough to know that yet.
Yeah.
So he's
Yeah.
falling for it.
But they have just as much. I'm hearing, being in the school system, I'm experiencing and I'm hearing more cases of sexual misconduct. And I typically teach elementary school. Like I said, this stuff you would normally hear in high school, and then eventually it start happening in the middle. And now it's getting to um, elementary school level, and you just seeing inappropriate behavior. I know over the pandemic, I've noticed how many children are addicted to porn, and we know those things existed, but it just was different. Like their access to it, they didn't have to learn how to rewind the tape exactly where it was, or so all they got to do is go to Google, and it's right on their phone. And it's, I've had students like when we were doing virtual learning, they learn how to trick the system and expose, porn that they were watching on their computer or their phones to the whole class. So now, security features have to be tighter, and it's a weird space to be in. And I don't think anything is new. It's just the access to the information that people have now to it, which
Yeah,
is weird.
it's just way more accessible for these kids now, and now they're
Hmm.
it's right in their faces. So that's why you got the whole class now trying to set their value based on the value that's not even in their house. It's on the
Right,
internet.
right. It's like what's on a reality show or Instagram or something,
Yeah,
or TikTok, basically.
and that's you know, I mean, look, but I remember we was rapping, man, we had it in our hearts and mind. We had to make it before we was like a certain age, bro. So we was recording every day. Years of my
Mhm.
life, I probably could have spent just having social experiences, chilling with people, going out, talking to some girls. Like, I can do all types of things I could have been doing. I was recording it every day.
But
Just
that
to,
that seemingly has defined your work ethic and your focus, which, even if you were on the other side of that, it would have shaped who you are. And at some point, I think, and this is what people think today, that's why they don't help more. But he'll get it eventually. And
yeah,
some of us are dying without getting it, or
yeah.
40, 50 years old, just, being introduced to it. But
I
this is
mean,
definitely a conversation that I wanted to have because it, I don't know how other people will answer. And I know my answer to this is based off of trauma and yours more to your experience. But it, I don't know why these conversations aren't happening at home and with children. And not, this is not to bash parents, but a lot of this stuff stems from home.
yeah,
And so I don't understand why it's not happening. And I get it. You didn't get it. So how do I know to give it to this person? And often
right,
I haven't gotten that aha moment yet. So I'm having children and then they're suffering through my ignorance or my lack of information. And now it's passing down to another cycle of children or
right.
generation. But yeah, that's what my takeaway today. Do you have a takeaway for today?
Um, yeah. I mean, I feel that a lot of us were taught by people who were never really taught, more indoctrinated into the idea of patriarchy and manhood.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of us are learning indoctrined information. Like we were, it was beat into our heads to behave a certain way, and now we're getting older and having to recontextualize those lessons and realize not that wasn't a soundproof plan. A lot of that was superstition in terms of the reality of how many of us
Right.
could actually attain that. So how do we define ourselves? What is our sexual value when 2/3 of our value involved classism and just having
Mm,
more resources and more ability to do
trauma.
something? Yeah, like it was more from the perspective of power. So now that power is equalized, how do men define themselves as not being the hierarchy of things? And to those who were never at the benefit of patriarchy, it's real easy. And to those who used to benefit greatly from it, you notice they're stuck at a certain age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're
You can
stuck.
see it's so clear. You can almost guess what age they are stunted or stuck in.
They're stuck. And that was their high point. That was their point where the world made sense to them. And then now, to be honest, the world doesn't make sense to a lot of guys. And because not that they can adapt, a lot of people they want that power dynamic.
Well, the rules changed. We went through a thing where everything. I watch a lot of these shows, and the lady was like, "Well, men don't come up to you. Men aren't chivalrous anymore. Men aren't. Men aren't. Men." And the man said, "Maybe, Miss, we are in the middle of the Me Too movement. Me saying hello, young lady, you look pretty today is harassment. So
But
why would men feel comfortable coming up
everything,
to you? They gotta play those games."
everything. With being honest, 90% of how we speak, we have to speak through like a filter, automatically.
Hmm.
Like even right now, when we bring up certain topics, it's just me and you talking, but there's still a level we have to police our words because as men, if I
Yeah,
make a strong statement against a certain community, even if I'm just being wholeheartedly truthful, then I'm immediately scrutinized, questioned, I'm demonized just for me pointing out something that may have affected how we set our value. But
that's. I don't know how you see it, but that's scary to me
yeah,
because on my I just left a station that I was at for almost 10 years, and I can physically tell you when that began to change. It physically was a moment where I wouldn't have, and we were in a studio. I would not have a woman on my show, even though there was an engineer looking at us the whole time, a third party there, at least one other person. I didn't feel comfortable if that person didn't bring somebody with them, which I would say to them, or it was somebody I knew personally.
right,
I would not even have a conversation like that because there's been too many times where something has been turned or shifted, and we're in a space now where you were not teaching men these rules and this way of living that is healthy, and now you change the rules in the middle of that, and now you have people who have been used to being this type of man, and now that's inappropriate, which is fine, great. A lot of misconduct has happened because there were no rules set, but a
yeah,
lot of things happened because there were no rules set. There was no information given. And now we're in a space where you have to, and you said it because now we do it without even thinking about it. Or we preface everything with saying, well, I'm not trying to say it's
yeah.
hard to not even deliver the truth without a prerequisite.
That's why I always live by the motto of if I know when I'm speaking in good favor, I'm coming from a good place, then everything else is just I'll let go and let God. So I never try to speak from a place of bitterness, especially if it's something I disagree with. I try to find a level of understanding, just so
Yeah.
I'm not, imparting my
Mhm.
bias. I just feel with certain people, um, when it comes to talking about their value, it's just hard because again, 2/3 of their value was based on old rules, and now those rules are no longer in effect. They feel attacked, like they're their type of man, and I know a lot of dudes felt that way. A lot of the homies. Like we had an issue. Like what? Like, bro, we used to walk up on the store. How you doing, mama? I mean, all that was the game. Now you walk up and she feel harassed, or you either grab her on the arm, like, hey, sure, I want to talk to you. Now that's immediate harassment.
Yeah.
A lot of us had to change. Now, if you were never too aggressive and you always generally had a respect for human beings, wasn't that hard to make an adjustment. But again, we were taught that women were seen as
Aggression, lead with aggression.
we were taught that we weren't taught to lead with being kind and it's okay to be a little soft spoken, especially when you're trying to be friendly with somebody. There's a balance to things, but you
Hmm.
only you only learn that when you're taught a healthy method of approaching women, which a lot of dudes are not taught that. You have to slowly learn how
Hmm.
to be healthy in terms of how you approach a woman and talk to a woman and not be a creep.
And a lot of men are learning that in facilities now, unfortunately, in group therapy sessions that they are court ordered to be in and such.
Right.
And so hopefully, conversations like this are happening in other spaces that are healthy conversations about this, how we should be changing, but also addressing what has happened. We often, especially when we're talking about men, we're often giving them the information now, but we're not going back in time and trying to figure out where that started or how that started or what was the point of contention. But Yeah. But yeah, we are coming to a close. Like I said, next week our topic is giving men a safe space to heal and grow. Um, uh, Anything you want to like preface and going into that topic or closing out this topic?
I feel that next topic is probably gonna answer a lot of the questions from this topic.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause
Mm-hmm.
without that safe space, you have the issue we have here where we don't know how to set our value.
Mm. Mm.
So
The one that I'm waiting to is not next week, the week after that, where we talk about the negative image of Black success and how that is harming us and pushing many of us forward, actually. But yeah, I felt like that, and that's thanks to you to helping me with the order because that does answer a lot of this versus
yeah,
talking about that first and then bringing this up. But it really, yeah, this is much needed. This is therapeutic to me. I have never approached this type of platform like this before, even over the years of me doing this, and this is very helpful. And it was really thanks to you for the conversations I watched you having on your platform. So I definitely wanted to share this space and create a space where we can freely speak on those topics.
yeah.
So um, you want any last minute thoughts or you want anything you got coming up that you want people to tune into or
Um, I haven't really done a podcast episode. I've been getting some information together.
mm-hmm,
I'm gonna start just putting them more better together. But that's really what I always wanted to do. I always wanted to have these conversations
mm-hmm,
like this, and I wanted to have it in a way where you weren't being attacked, like you weren't being beat over the head. Like I wanted this to be a
right,
convo. Like if you see a lot of my lives, it's just me talking to the homies, and
mm-hmm,
it's the hey, I never thought of it that way. Like, yeah, man, that's all it's about. Like, I'm not here to tell you what's right or wrong. Like, but give it a thought. Like,
right,
I can make it make sense to you. So it's not like like I feel like someone's way of thinking should be able to handle scrutiny. And if I believe in something, I have no issue with you asking questions. Why would that bother me if I didn't believe in it?
yeah. But
So
it's still the idea that we have to realize that a lot of us did not get the same information or
yeah,
the information at all. And I'm not a cotton candy person, but we have to deliver it as a tool for them and not a weapon against them.
yeah,
Wisdom can definitely float on that thin line and go either way. And it's been a part of how we are doing now. So success looks like, oh, I'm here, and now let me tell you what you're doing wrong.
right,
Versus, and I feel like that towards the educational system as well. We teach our children from a space of them knowing nothing.
yeah,
Versus let me know. So, how do you feel about such and such? And figuring out what they know and then giving them the information that I've acquired. Because many of us are just getting this information.
yeah,
I'm going to be transparent and say I am. I'm just getting this type of enlightenment and awareness. And it's been a choice, throughout my years, whether I use it or not. And I'm
yeah,
just in a space where, as a Black man, I have to be totally 10 toes down in my beliefs and knowing what I want moving forward. But with that being said, thank you, sir. Let us know where you can be found at on social media, where we can find your shows at. Um, yeah.
definitely. A Nerd Rap podcast on Apple or Google Podcast, Streamer, Stitcher, Spotify, any place where they show podcasts, you can check me out. And I do the live episodes on my Facebook and Alan Gray. Um, I appreciate you having me, Nate. These conversations are. I look forward to these every Friday. These are always healthy and real therapeutic combos to have.
Hmm.
Just they're positive. You just feel afterward, feel like a weight let off. Like
Hmm.
like men can discuss certain things that there are not a lot of open forum for us to.
Right.
So Definitely appreciate it, man.
And if there's anything I can do to continue to help or reach out and support you in any way, don't hesitate at all. So this was a joint space. I try to always work from that space of what we can do for each other versus
Right.
trying to pick somebody up by their bootstraps or something. But this has been great. These are the first three. We have four more to go, and I'm really excited about just learning more about you. And the people who comment after the fact are definitely learning things as well based off the questions that I see them asking. So we'll be back next Friday, the same time. Up next on the Artist Exchange Media Hub is IMC podcast. I'm sorry, I've been working too much today. That comes on tomorrow, Saturday at 11 a.m. So don't miss it. And check out this man's podcast. Go to his Facebook page, Alan Gray, and check out his lives. I know he got some in the pocket about to come out. So support him and follow him, like, share, subscribe to the Artist Exchange Media Hub on Facebook, Instagram, as well as YouTube. Have a great day and enjoy your weekend. The spring trying to jump out there. It's trying. It's trying to do what it's due. But peace out, everybody.
All right, man. We appreciate you, brother.
Anytime.
All right.